Hi everyone, welcome back to A Town Called Yarn, obviously not a real town. My name is Harrison, I am 28 and I live in the south of England, and this is my place on the internet where I like to talk about knitting, crochet, yarn, all that kind of stuff. This is episode 7 of these, so we're kind of chugging along nicely. I make these every 2 weeks, so if you've not seen any of the other ones back, we've got about, I suppose, kind of 3.5 months worth going if you want to kind of go back and watch any of the others. We've had a little bit of an influx is actually far too dramatic. We've had a few people that have subscribed to the channel, so that's been really wonderful. So thank you so much if you've subscribed. If you haven't and you would like to, if you enjoy this video or any of the other ones, that would be really wonderful. If you like this video, then giving it a like is also much appreciated. But let's crack on. So like I said, it's been 2 weeks since I last spoke to you. So since then I've done a good amount of crafting, I think. I was thinking about it last night. I've got a couple of projects that I was working on over the last couple of days. I feel like for some reason over the last week I've been moving my hands really slowly. I've been making some granny squares that I'll talk about and knitting a little bit, and everything's just felt like it's slower than it normally is. Things that I expect to take kind of 15-20 minutes are actually taking kind of 30 to 40 minutes. But I don't know if that's just in my head or whether that's like the reality. I don't know whether time's actually moving slower for me when I'm making things. Work's been pretty busy over the past couple of weeks, so I found that my evenings have felt a bit shorter as well, in terms of by the time I finish work and sit down and actually feel like I want to make anything, that's felt like a much more condensed time, especially over the past week. I have next week off though, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to just have quite a relaxed week. There's not a lot going on. It is my birthday, not the Saturday. So I posted this on Sunday, so it wasn't my birthday yesterday. It's my birthday next Saturday for you. And I'm turning 29, so last year of my 20s. So, which I'm excited about. Well, actually, I don't know if I'm that excited about it. I tend to get quite reflective around my birthday, and I'm very much in that mood at the moment where I'm like, shall I buy a new journal? Shall I start writing things down? What do I want to do over the next year? So I'm very much in that space, and I'm a little bit in that space with my crafting as well, but I'll probably talk about that more in the next episode because I've not really made any plans currently, but I'm very much in that planning phase, which I think I kind of always am. I think I've spoken about plans quite a lot in these videos, despite having only finished one object since I started making them. I think that's everything though, life-wise, that I have to say really. Mostly just work's been busy, so had a bit less time. But I've still made some quite good progress, so I've got no finished objects for this week. The first thing actually that I want to talk to you about is not yet a whip. And it's more of a plea for help, and then I'll get into my whips. So I last weekend sat down and I thought I'm going to cast on some socks. I had some needles ready for magic loop. I caked up the yarn and I was ready to start knitting my first pair of socks. It didn't go that well. I got quite frustrated with it. I find I like magic loop. When I used magic loop to finish off my hat, I quite enjoyed that. But I really don't like casting on with magic loop. I found my stitches at either end were just so far apart that was just going to be really noticeable and really ugly, and it just didn't really seem for me. So I kind of ripped it out. I wrapped up the yarn, and I'm just going to kind of leave that out of my brain for a little bit, and then I'll come back to it. I think I'm probably not going to try magic loop next time though. I think what I'm probably going to give a go is using either 2 16-inch circulars or buying some of the, I think they're called like flexi flips, or the, I suppose, kind of flexible DPNs, because I think that might be the best way for me to knit small circumference without feeling like I need an extra pair of hands, because as of yet they've not invented a way to grow an extra pair of hands, and I don't really feel like waiting until that happens. But what I then did, because I got really frustrated and I wanted to cast on something new, I was in the mood. I then thought I'll cast on a new hat, and I thought I'd cast on a hat for my dad. So I caked up some yarn that I'd had, and originally I had this for socks. So this is the brand, or the dyer, Ainsworth and Prin. So that's a little tag. They you might know them online as the Knitting Shed, because that's their shop, and then they dye as Ainsworth and Prin. And I got this, I think this was the first skein of hand-dyed yarn I ever bought, and I bought this at last year's Southern Wool Show. Yes, that is what it's called. And they're coming back this year, and I'm probably going to pick up some more yarn from them because I really like their colourways. And this is, it's a sock set. It's 80%, 20%, so 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and it came with 100 grams and a 20 grams. I don't think this colourway has a name, but I really, really like it. It's, so this, there we go. That's showing up. It's a little bit lighter in real life than it's showing on camera, but only a touch. So it's this blue colour that's kind of my favourite shade of blue, with these brown speckles throughout it. And then the mini that comes with it is a kind of quite rich, slightly warm-toned brown. And they go together. And originally these were going to be socks. Originally, and I mentioned it in last week's episode, this was the sock set that was going to be my bubblegum socks. Is that what it's called? Bubble? Yeah, I think bubblegum socks from James Makes Things. I thought a kind of neutral version would be quite cool. However, as I said, I got quite frustrated making socks. I don't think I'm in a position where I'm going to get onto socks anytime soon. Or, no, I will soonish, but not to the point where I'm going to start using my various sock sets. I'm probably going to knit a few pairs on commercial yarn and really get a feel for it first. So I thought instead I would make this into a hat for my dad, which is a really long roundabout way of saying I would like some, I suppose, pattern suggestions would be great. I really struggle to find, I want to use both colours, I really struggle to find anything hat-wise that felt like it was good for a sock set amount of yarn. What I really want, I think, is something that's in the brim, that's a bit contrasty, kind of has maybe some colour work in it, and then a plain rest of the hat, because then I think I've got plenty of yarn for that. I find most of the colour work hats that are out, all the colour work's actually in the rest of the hat, which makes a lot of sense. But with the amount of yarn I've got, I don't think I'd have enough. So I think, oh, I dropped the tag. I think I want, yeah, I think I just want to try and find, what I might end up doing is I might end up just knitting, similar to the last sock I knit, I might just knit just the brim in the brown and then the rest of it in the blue. And that would be really nice, I think. But I was kind of hoping there'd be more patterns out that have something going on in the brim. There is the Bosca hat, which is Jonathan Day's first pattern that he released, which I like, but it's a DK weight hat. And I think I will knit that one day, but I think I might actually get some Spincycle for it and use the kind of recommended yarns just to be safe on the gauge. And I was considering then trying to see if I could replicate that in this yarn and maybe hold it double, but I mean, I could hold it double. That might be the plan. We'll see. But like I said, if any of you know of any patterns that have something going on in the brim, I'd really appreciate that. That'd be great. And this is in one of my, as you'll see, as if you've watched any of these before, one of my butternut handmade bags, as all but one of my bags are. So that's obviously, like I said, not a whip. I feel like I waffled on about that for a while. So let's go on to whips. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have six whips. 2 of them I've done very little on, so I'll kind of, when I get to them, I'll just kind of flow through them. The first one is the, let's do the granny wrap. So this is actually the only one that's in not a butternut. Oh, I just knocked my tripod. Let's bring you back a little bit. I think that's moved a bit. So this is a bag I made myself. It's an odd shape. I took into account, I've spoken about this loads before, I took into account the height when adding the box bottom, but I didn't take into account the width, so it's meant to be considerably wider. But it's pretty good for my granny wrap, which is a pattern by Anaboos House. I've got my dodgy bag pin there from Ali at Little Drops of Wonderful. And I am making, like I said, a granny wrap by Anaboos House. And this is using the Secret the Secret Treasure Box Blanket Club by Greenlambkin yarns, which is a monthly subscription. and you get 4 20-gram DK weight minis each month, and you can get them either on the classic DK, which is what I've gone for, or the Sparkle DK if you want. And I am throughout the year turning this into a granny wrap. Now it's getting to the point where you're not necessarily getting a full back and forth repeat with every colour. So what I'll do actually is I will put up a picture of the yarns in their skeins as they're wrapped up there, just so you can see them a little bit better. But I will also show you them in the wrap. Let me see if I can find a point that has all 4 of the colours. Yes, there we go. So it's those last 4 colours there. So a bit of a surprising one, the neon kind of yellow with pops of neon green in, which was kind of a bit of a departure from any of the other colours, but I really like, it's a nice little pop of quite bright colour. And then the one above it, which I think is my favourite, and I'd honestly quite like a full skein of that, I think it's really pretty, is this, it's better to see in the picture. It's this kind of like quite neutral, kind of light beige, kind of grey tone, with these then really wonderful pops of quite moody colours in, which I'm really, really like. And then above it was this kind of bubblegum, cotton candy kind of purple with some splashes of blues and pink in there, and then the top was a creamy colour with some greens and some purples throughout it, which is the last one that I added. So this is 7 months in yet. It's getting to a good size. I've still got a fair bit to go on it, obviously, with them coming to the end of the year, but I'm still really enjoying it. I find when the yarn comes in, I will tend to drop what I'm making to put them in this straight away, because I just really enjoy the mindlessness of it. And like I said, that's in a bag I made myself, so really, really happy with that. The progress of this is kind of the same every time. There's no way to really rush ahead because I'm keeping up with it as it comes along. But that is whip number 1. Whip number 2, is that what's in this bag? Whip number 2 is actually a new cast on. So I spoke about this last episode as a plan. I've wanted to teach myself how to do brioche, so that I kind of had it as a skill under my belt. And I have started a pattern by Snickerdoodle Knits, which is the Any Yarn Brioche Scarf. And it's not really a pattern, I suppose, it's more of, it just explains how to do brioche and then gives you some gauge options for different yarns, because you can use any yarns that you want with it. I am using DK, and to be honest, if you know how to do brioche, you don't really need the pattern, because it's really just the basic instructions of brioche. And I'm doing a DK weight version. So the 2 yarns I'm using are, let me show you actually, I'm just holding it and looking down at it. So this is the one side of it, and then this is the other. It's kind of curling in at the moment. It'll need a decent block, I think. What I did was I started with just a few rows of garter, which isn't in the pattern, but I found the cast-ons otherwise looked a bit messy going straight into the brioche, so I ended up ripping out and just starting with a few rows of garter, and then I'm probably going to add tassels to this, and I will sew the tassels through the garter so they kind of come from within it. The neutral coloured yarn is the colour Teddy by, it's James C. Brett's Super Soft Baby Double Knit. Yeah, Teddy is the colour. And then the other is also James C. Brett, and that's 100% acrylic yarn. The other one is a 80% acrylic, 20% wool in their James C. Brett Aurora range, and this is in colour AU05. I don't think they have colourway names. But as you can see, actually let me put them back in the bag, otherwise I will lose them. As you can see, I'm kind of moving through, actually it's probably easier to show that way. I've moved through kind of into some light blues. The cake of the, it's a bit of a mess, but you can see there's lots of colours in there. We're probably about to get to a bit of kind of the purples and the reds. But I find this really satisfying to knit because I found brioche a lot easier than I thought I would. For some reason it just sounded really complicated, and when I saw people do it I thought that looked complicated, but then I found a single YouTube video that just kind of clicked and showing how to do it. And I haven't really, at least I don't think I have made any mistakes yet. Although saying that, I think I've actually just found a mistake, so maybe I'm actually just lying. Yeah, something has gone wrong there. I'm not sure what though. And I'm not overly bothered, to be honest. It's quite early on, so you probably won't see. And it's on what I think will probably be the reverse size of it anyway, even though it is two-sided. So like I said, I'm doing this on DK weight yarn using a 4.5mm hook, which is quite a loose gauge. I could have probably gone down to a 4mm. The reason I didn't was because I was already using my 4mm from my interchangeable set, and I didn't fancy getting any other needles for it, and I didn't want to stop that other project. So I just used a 4.5mm, and I'm happy with a loose gauge on this. I think it'll be make it a nice kind of flowier scarf. But I'm happy with that, so I'm happy with the amount of progress. It's one of those projects that I probably will end up doing for quite a long time, because where I wanted to do it to learn a skill, I feel like I've now learned that skill. And while I'm still enjoying the project, I no longer have the motivation of teaching myself something new. So this might linger a little bit, but I also quite like doing brioche, so I might just throw a few rows in it here and there, and then eventually it will get done. Obviously it's a scarf, so it was going to take a little while anyway, because it's quite long. And I cast on, I think, about 60 stitches, which is again wider than the pattern said. I didn't really use the pattern at all, to be honest. I used it to learn how to read the pattern and to make sure I'm doing the right thing each row. But other than that, I'm not really referring to it too much. It's a very, very simple pattern. I think it's probably a little bit overpriced for what's actually in the pattern. But also I don't think I'd have started this without it, so I think in some ways it probably is worth the money. And a surprise to no one, that's in another Buttonette handmade bag. Next, this I won't talk about very much, but then I will use it as a way to kind of talk into another new cast on that I've made. So this is my moss stitch fade blanket, which isn't a pattern, it's just I'm doing a blanket out of moss stitch. And this is using the, oh, I thought I'd woven in all my ends. I haven't. This is using the Footsteps Yarn Club by Pixie Yarns, which is a quarterly yarn club. You get 6 colourways each quarter, and I'm choosing the 50g fingering weight version. You can buy them as 100g weight skeins on their own. You can buy them as fingering, DK. There's loads of options on there. And this is getting a bit crumpled up because it's probably been packed away for longer than it has at any time. I'm all caught up on this. The next set of yarns isn't coming out till the start of September, so this won't get any work on it for a little while. But since I last spoke to you, I was on the penultimate colour, or not penultimate because there's still 2 more sets to come, but the penultimate of set 2, which was this kind of orange, and then it's moved up into a kind of slightly reddy, purpley, browny section, which I like. And there wasn't a lot left to do since I last showed it to you, so not a lot of progress has gone on this, so I won't talk about it too much. And this, I'm doing this with a 3.5mm hook, fingering weight yarn, like I said. However, because there wasn't a lot to do on this, another Buttonette handmade bag, because there wasn't a lot to do with this, and my yarn hadn't come in yet for the granny wrap blanket, I realised I didn't have any crochet products, and I wanted something a bit mindless in crochet to be able to work on. So I've been talking a little bit for the past couple of episodes about wanting to probably start a granny square blanket. That's a long-term project, just using yarns that come in that I think will be nice, I guess. And I think I've kind of established the kind of colour world I want it to live in. Because I have actually started making, and I have made 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've made 10 squares. I won't talk about this too much now. What I'm probably going to do is, well, I'll explain. So, I have one of these kind of crochet boards that I bought the last time I did a granny wrap project, but not granny wrap, granny square project. But then I've not actually used it since, and that was probably last October, and I thought, oh, that'll be great, but then I just made like 150 granny squares, so I didn't want to make any more, so I haven't used it since then. But it's actually really handy. So what I'm doing is I'm making each one, I'm putting it on here, and then when it gets to the top of these pins, I'm then going to take them all off and block them on blocking mats and steam them to make them square. And then I need to think of a way to store them, because this is probably going to be a reasonably long-term project, probably like years rather than months. So let's explain the granny square. So it's just a traditional granny square. It is 7 rounds of fingering weight yarn using a 3.5mm hook. Same colour all the way around. I watched a few tutorials on how to make kind of perfect granny squares, and a few of them suggested kind of cutting your yarn each time. I think I have too much love for myself and my time to leave myself 14 ends to weave in with every single square, especially where I think I'm probably going to make like 150 of these. And as you can see, I'm not weaving in my ends as I go. What I'll do is once these are at the top of the pins, I will weave in the ends, then block them, then store them. Currently, the yarns that I've been using the most, a couple of the yarns, one of them is the same yarn, which is a Bathing Court of Ladies from Pigment and Ply, which was the yarn I used for my hat. I used a bit of that to put into it. I used another yarn from Pigment and Ply that I used in my clockwork, another variegated. And then the other 8 have all been from the Crafty Birds Good Omens collection, which I got a mini set of. I've got a few other full skeins from the collection, but I couldn't really pick, so I also wanted to get the mini set. So I got 20-gram minis. I'm using about 8 grams in each of these, so I have a fair bit left over. If I put this down, I've got 2 more, the last 2 from that 10 colour set caked up. And the colour family that I'm kind of going for is, it's kind of going to be a multicoloured but moody kind of colour family. If you look at that, it's not, there's some brighter colours in there, there's some lightness, but that's actually so fun to look at, isn't it? It's kind of a slightly moodier tone, nothing kind of neon, nothing super, super bright. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of, as either full skeins come in, I've got some leftovers, or if I see mini skeins or buy mini skein sets, that's some of, probably all of those are going to go into this. And then when I finished it, I will buy a colour that's kind of a neutral to join them and do join as you go and make a blanket. I've got all the balls left over of all the yarns that I've already made. So like I said, there's about kind of between 10 and 12 grams in each of these. And I don't know what I'll do with these yet. I might at some point, if I'm kind of struggling, if I need like maybe 3 or 4 extra squares, I might just reuse a couple of my favourite colours and throw them into there rather than waiting an extra month to find yarn that I like. But for the moment, I'm going to keep all of them separate, and then because I won't need to use all of them, they might become some other kind of scrappy blanket. I might do like a granny stripe blanket. I might do a like a jelly roll, but I don't think I'm really a knitted blanket kind of boy. But I'm really happy with that. And I'm really happy to have something that I kind of think I'll always now have a mindless crochet to work on, which is really what I found I needed. So that's my second new cast on. Let's do my shift cowl, which is probably the last of the exciting whips. Well, actually, I suppose it's turn to you ask. So this is the shift cowl by Andrea Mowry. It is using 3 skeins of Spincycle yarns, and it's knitted on the bias to create a cowl that's then seamed at the back. So let me hold this up at the right. So there we go. Last time I showed this to you, I was here. So I've done this extra section, which is the last section of increases. So we're going to start decreasing now and work out to that final point. I'm happy with this. It did get to another point where, so you can see here, there was a bit where the contrast really dropped. And at first I didn't like it, and then I thought, oh no, am I going to have to rip this out? But then I ended up quite liking it. That happened again up here with the greys, and I had the same kind of panic, but we move. I actually quite like it now that it kind of looks, it's almost like a bit TV staticky, which I like. And would actually be quite a fun like colourway, kind of like a really neutrally speckled yarn. So like I said, I'm on the decreases. I think I might try and finish this before I next show it to you. That's a bold claim because who knows what's going to happen over the next 2 weeks. But I do have a week off work, and now that I'm in the decreases, I find this really is turning out to be really, really quick to work on, because I'm really enjoying like the slip stitches and the mindless colour work nature of it. So yeah, I might try and finish it by the time I next see you. We'll see. I guess you'll find out in 2 weeks' time if you come back. Another great reason to subscribe. Like I said, that uses 3 colourways of Spincycle yarns. It's the dyed in the wool Spincycle yarn, which is a sport weight yarn, and I'm knitting that on 4mm needles. So this is the reason why the Brioche scarf is knitted on 4.5, because I didn't want to stop doing this and take the needles off. The colourways, so I'm now on to colourway B and C. I've kind of used most of colourway A. So this is colourway A. It also had some orange in it and some more kind of blues and purples, but now it's mostly purple. And I won't start using that till towards the end. This is colourway B, and you can see we're onto these quite light blues, which I didn't really realise were in here, which is the fun thing about Spincycle yarns. I said it last time, I think it's probably quite overpriced for what it is, but it is fun that there's just colours in there that you didn't know were in there. And then colour C is this much more neutral. There's a little bit of light orange, but we're moving into some darker greys, and then it will end on some creams. But I don't think we'll ever actually get to this light colour. I think we'll probably end in the oranges on that colour. But I don't know, it might end up using more of the yarn than I'm expecting. And that is, surprise, surprise, in another butternut handmade bag. So, final whip, which this is the project that made me think that things are taking longer than they used to. I feel I put this down 2 weeks ago, and I still felt like I was moving through it at a good pace. I put it down just because I wanted to work on something, a couple of other things. I picked it up this week, and now it just feels like the rows are taking so long. This is the Faded Undulation shawl by Stephen West. It's my first, no it's not, no, I was about to say it's my first Stephen West pattern, it's not. The first thing I ever knit was a Stephen West pattern, was the Clockwork scarf. Or I think it's called a shawl, but I think it's actually a scarf really. So this is the Faded Undulation that I'm knitting out of Bellica yarns fingering weight. It's quite big, so it's getting a bit hard to show. So there we go. So what it is it's a fade. So it started off in this lighter colour, and then it faded up through a medium, we're into the 3rd colour. And we're on the section where it's just the 3rd colour before we start striping in the 4th colour. The rows are they're quite long at this point, but I don't know, they're not like obviously massively longer than they were 2 weeks ago, because I did just put it down, but they're just feeling like they're taking a while. I've got to the point where I felt like I could add a whole section in each time, so I'm kind of only adding in like 3 or 4 rows, so kind of half a section. And you'll see that there's the progress marker, that's all the progress I've made in a week. And this has been the only thing I really knit on during the week. Once I get to a point where I'm like, I don't want to add another row into this, I then kind of make a granny square, and that's my making for the night really. However, this kind of has a bit of a deadline. Well, actually it doesn't. I've made up the deadline myself. There's no one pressuring me to do it. I would like to have this finished by the Southern Wool Show, because I bought this yarn from Bellica Yarns last year at the Southern Wool Show, and I think it would be good to get 4 skeins of yarn out of my stash by the time I inevitably buy more yarn, potentially from Bellica Yarns, because I think she's coming back. That yarn show is on the 7th of September I'm going, which is the Saturday, which means I have less than a month to finish this. I'm going to try and put a good amount into this next week when I have a week off, because I think once I get back into the pattern again, it might get to the point where I feel like I'm so close to finishing that I just ignore everything else and just finish it. I might also not end up having it finished by the 7th of September. Those are the only 2 options. You will see next time, so in a couple of weeks when I next speak to you, you'll see then whether this is going to be finished or not, because my next video will come out a week before the Southern Wool Show. And if it's not done by next episode, or if it's not like almost done by next episode, it's probably not going to be done, because I want it to be, I mean, I'm probably not even going to take it with me. It'll probably be too warm. So I don't really know why I'm giving myself a deadline, but I am. But that is the Faded Undulation and I'm knitting that on 3.75mm needles, I think. I've wrapped up my needles in it. There we go. 3.75mm needles, which is a little bit, which I think is partly why it's larger than the size. I knit one thing from Sleep West and it came out a bit small, so I thought, I'm a tight knitter, I need to start sizing up needles, which I did in this, and I think I'm actually not that tight a knitter anymore. So this is ending up, I'm getting further into it, so I'm kind of, there's more needles on my, no. There's more stitches on my needle than I think there like should be at this point, because I think it should be a bit tighter, so I think that's also slowing it down a bit. But I'm still enjoying it. I'm looking forward to it being done. I'm looking forward to having the finished object. I think it's going to be a gift for my mum later in the year. I might save it for her for Christmas, but we'll see what happens with it. It will definitely get finished by Christmas. I'm not going to let it linger, because otherwise I'll never finish it. And that is all of my whips. Yes, so I've had a little bit of yarn that arrived since I last spoke to you. So I'm going to show you that. So obviously I had the DK minis from the Secret Treasure Box Yarn Club, which are already in there. So I showed you the picture of that earlier. I also had, actually I should have maybe warned you that that was, if you hadn't had yours, but it is August, so I think everyone has. Sorry if that spoiled that for you and I didn't let you know. Let me know in the comments, I'll apologise. I have two other yarn clubs that have arrived. I think they're the only other two I'm doing. Yeah. So I'm going to show, these are both July's colourways, so I think we're well out of them. But again, if you are a member of the Cool Woolings Mini Society or Lottie Knits Little Bird Sock Minis, skip forward a few minutes, and if you haven't had July's, if you haven't seen July's, because that's what I'm about to speak about. I just flashed them up. That's what I'm going to speak about and show. So let's start with Cool Woolings. This was a bit of a surprise from Cool Woolings. I really like it. I'm kind of excited to make something with it. So the Cool Woolings Mini Society is 5 20-gram minis. They're 85% superwash, 15% nylon, and they're in a kind of, each month has its own colour palette, so they don't transition through the months. And July's, a lot of the other ones have been quite bright neons or kind of maybe some monochromes. This one is quite a kind of nice palette of pinks and purples, which I wasn't really expecting when I opened it. They're usually solids. There is a little bit of variegation in this one, but for the most part they're solids. And yeah, I don't know what I'll do with these. I don't really know what I'll do with any of them. One set I think I'll make a friend of mine a hat with, because it's kind of this, it's almost a fade of like kind of slimy neon-y greens. I mean that in a good way, which I think will really suit them. And this might also become a gift for someone. It would probably also be a nice hat, to be honest with you. It might also be a nice colour work project. It might be, they will end up being minis to go with another full skein that I buy elsewhere, but I really like them. So that is the July Mini Society from Cool Woolings. And then the Lottie Knits Little Bird Sock Minis. So these are, you get a mini, I said Little Bird Sock Minis, that's just the name of the base. It's actually the Mini Fade Club, which is each month you get your own fade. So, or a separate fade, they're not personalised. Each month you get a separate fade. They don't linger from month to month, so it's not like a yearly fade. You're getting a 5 mini skein fade each month. And this is in the colourway Bluebell Wood, is what this month's is called. And it's this wonderful kind of, it's blues and greens that kind of fade through into kind of purples and gets a bit deeper. I really like this. Again, not a clue what I'm going to do with this. If you watched a few episodes ago, I did talk about what my original plan was with this, which was this kind of granny, hexy, large blanket that has them all in with kind of neutral pops throughout it. That might still be the case, but I don't know. I don't know whether that will be what I end up doing, so I might just end up using them in kind of individual projects. This would probably make some nice kind of maybe scrappy socks at some point. I say, having got frustrated trying to make one pair of socks. Maybe a nice fade on a hat, maybe, who knows, but that's that club. So that's my only 2 clubs. And then I bought a couple of other skeins of yarn. So I've spoken about before, I really love Pigment and Ply's yarn base. Not yarn base, well I do like her yarn bases, but I really like Pigment and Ply's dye style. I think the way that, I think her name's Jess, who, the way she dyes really kind of speaks to me. I really love the colours that she uses. She recently did 2 drops and they were kind of a mixture of an in-stock and pre-order. The first colour came from the first drop, but then it was still available when the second drop came, so I ended up getting them together, because originally I resisted the first drop. The first drop was from a kind of collection of favourites. So they were 4 skeins, 2 that Jess picked herself and 2 that she got people to vote on, that she then re-dyed from all the time she's been dyeing. And the colourway I got from that was a solid, or a kind of semi-solid, called Nordmania. It's called that. I don't know. Nordmaniana. Anyway, and I got this on the 100% Superwash Merino double knit base. It is such a wonderful kind of emerald green, tealy. It's the tone of it I love so much. I'm really, really excited to make something about this. I think it's going to be a hat. I really, really love it. It could potentially be part of the Bosca hat. But then I kind of want to do that out of John Arbon. But that's the first skein I got. And then the skein that kind of convinced me to buy anything, which is when I then got this, was there's a selection of dyers that do a kind of Saturday night movie club collaboration where they all pick a movie and they dye up a colourway based on that. And I think they have a theme for the movies each time. This is the first time I've really kind of noticed it. And the one that Pigment and Ply did was themed after the girl with a pearl earring, which I'm assuming is in a movie, because obviously it's a painting, but I think it was from a movie. But this is the colourway, and I just couldn't not buy it. I think it's so nice. It's my favourite kind of colourway, where it's kind of got a bit of every colour blended together really nicely, kind of speckled and merged, but like you get pops of everything. And if you look there we go, if you look there, that kind of matches this colour. So it might be, I think if you see them side by side, they're very similar. So I might end up putting these together in a project, or they might be 2 separate projects, but I definitely want to make something out of them. I really, really love them. I think they're so nice. So that was from Pigment and Ply. And I think that's everything I have to talk to you about. Let me have a sip of water and check my notes. Is there anything else that I was... No, so like I said, so I post these every 2 weeks, so I will see you again weekend after next. By then it will have been my birthday, and I'll probably be in that stage where I'm saying the wrong age for about 3 months, where I keep saying I'm 28, but I will be 29 in the last year of my 20s. And I probably will have some plans that I'll share with you at that point that they're not going to be like necessarily specific project plans, but they might just be more making general plans for the next year, for the last year of my 20s, and things that I maybe want to do, things that I maybe want to change, things that I want to learn, that kind of thing. I tend to get quite reflective, like I said, around my birthday. I also get quite reflected around New Year's Eve, and they're only about 4 months apart, so I'm in my reflective era for the next 4 months, where I'll be thinking about things and it's normally where I will buy, if I'm going to buy a new journal, it'll be during this period of the year, because I'll be like, right, January 1st or the day after my birthday, I'm going to start writing down everything that I ever think, and then it lasts about a month and I don't carry on. So, but yeah, I will see you in 2 weeks, and then we'll see what happened. I will let you know. I'll talk about what I did over my week off for my birthday, that kind of thing then. If you're still watching, thank you so much for watching. If you, like I said at the start, if you are subscribed, thanks for subscribing. If you're not and you enjoyed this, now's a great time to subscribe. You've already sat through about 40 minutes of listening to me, so why not? A like would be great. And again, like I said earlier, any ideas for patterns that have a kind of pop of something in the brim would be wonderful. And then if I get any, I will kind of check through them. I might talk about those next time as well, if I get any pattern recommendations, and I might show you those and let you know which one I'm using. I might have cast it on by then as well. But that's everything from me. I'll say it again, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.